Hey y'all, Plastic Commander here, and I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I've actually been having a little bit of trouble deciding what the next video is going to be. So, I'm going to do an old trick that my mom used to do to help get her brain juices flowing. I'm going to drink a little happy juice. So let's just unscrew the top and fix ourselves a nice tiny glass. The reason I use this glass is because it just looks really funny, to be honest, to drink out of this. It makes me feel like a tiny baby man person. So today's topic of discussion is going to be about one of my favorite sets of toy army men that is not a modern day set or a World War II set, but a Civil War set, and that is going to be the Civil War Mpc Union Soldiers. So these guys are super duper cool, as well as the company that made them. Mpc was established in the very early 1950s in the post-World War II years, and they got their start by making model kits, primarily model kits of cars, and those did pretty well. And then they decided to tackle actual toy figures. So some of their first figures were knockoffs of Native American Timmy sets released in the late 50s, but eventually they found their footing and started making figures of their own, and this set is one of them. So there's not any particularly interesting history on this set. A lot of companies at the time, from Marx to Lido to Ideal and Tempo, were making Civil War figures, and Mpc was no exception. The Wild West and the Civil War are two themes that did extremely well in the 1950s and 60s, and that's because of TV shows such as Gunsmoke, Bonanza, and other stuff like that. I wouldn't know because I'm under the age of, let's see, that was the 60s. I was born in 98. Yeah, I'm not 200 years old, so I wouldn't know about any of those shows. However, I do know about the toys that came from them. So, again, another cool set. Mpc would also make figures that were called ring hand figures, and this is probably what Mpc was best known for, were these figures right here. So these guys are really cool because the way they came packaged, their guns were loose. And in a way, these were some of the first ever actual action figures. You would get a rifle, they had submachine guns, rifles, there were other sets that had different accessories like space with space guns, and of course, stuff from the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. And they had accessories that they held. The only issue with this is that kids are really stupid. You see, between you and me, you know, the adults that are obviously watching a channel dedicated to toy army men, kids are kinda stupid. And they tend to lose stuff. In fact, the only reason I'm not doing a video on these guys, because they're more popular, this is like the only accessory I own. Remove his helmet and it's silver, just like Joker's from Full Metal Jacket when he watched that guy blow his head off. Yeah, it's hard to get a hold of accessories. Again, this is an example in toy collecting where the figures are not worth hardly anything, but the accessories they made are worth $1 bajillion. It's kind of like how in Mark's Battlegrounds, the figures can go for about $1 to $1.50 a piece. Old Mark's Battleground set. There are some that are worth more, like Mark's French Soldiers are worth a lot of money. But stuff like the minefields, the tiny little circular minefields that came in those sets, those go for about $40. About $10 a piece. I've seen sets with 6 go for well over $50. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's because kids would just lose them. Kids just wouldn't think anything of them. Parents probably vacuumed them up, and we just don't have a lot of them anymore. There are companies, however, that do make replacement accessories for these figures that are brand new. So if you are interested in purchasing Lido ring hand figures, you can look into those. But back to our Civil War buddies here and NPC. Eventually NPC would realize, oh shoot, kids are really stupid, and they would start making a variety of figures based off of World War II that had weapons attached to their hands. So, and this set was one of those sets of figures that were released in the early 60s. And the two sets that they released first were a set of Japanese soldiers and a set of German soldiers. Now, they had American soldiers that they made from World War II, but the reason they wanted to focus Japanese and German was because Marx released Battlegrounds in the early 60s. And if you saw my previous video, I talked about how in Battlegrounds, some of the first ever, I guess you could say bad guy toy soldiers, like Tan and Gray, that's where those come from. And tons of other toy companies scrambled to also make bad guy figures for their American GIs to fight. So, of course, two of the first sets they released with actual in-hand weapons were the Japanese and the Germans. So, vintage Mpc German Soldiers, which I'll do a video on those later down the road, and I'll put some up here in a moment just to show you. They go for, yeah, okay. They're actually remade. They reproduced them. But however, the Japanese soldiers that they produced go for quite a bit of money if you can ever find some. I see some broken online, and they go for significantly more than other toy figures. On screen now, we can actually see some vintage Mpc Japanese soldiers. These are some of the first figures that Mpc produced that were just full-on one figure, no detachable weapons or clothing items or anything. And if you had to place these in a tier list, these would be really up there, but they wouldn't be worth as much as these guys. And these guys are Mpc Soviet Soldiers, which these are probably the rarest of the rare when it comes to Mpc, and they're damn near impossible to find. And of course, finally we have some Mpc German Soldiers, which these are probably worth the least, but that's only because they're being made today by BMC. So, eventually in 1967, Mpc would be sold to the Laurel Company. And Laurel, after a couple of years of owning them, would go, uh-oh, we don't know how to run a toy company, and they would sell it off to another company. And eventually that company, I believe, if I'm correct, would file for bankruptcy in the 70s, and eventually sell off all their molds. And of course, BMC always comes back to them, actually reproduce a lot of the molds of a lot of their different figures. So not as many as Timmy or Vintage Marks, however, but you can still find some reissues made by other companies as well. Like I talked about in one of my previous videos, a lot of these companies, as they would go defunct, would start selling off a lot of their molds, like how the Ehrenstein brothers in 1964, when they sold their company, Lido, they also sold off a ton of their molds, and then eventually one of them would buy them back. But anyway, guys, these Civil War dudes are pretty cool. I just wanted to show them off to you because this is one of the few Mpc sets that I have that's complete. And yeah, I just thought they were really cool. One thing you may notice is that the blue is a much more metallic blue color. It's not really like other Army men where a lot of toy soldiers that are different colors, it's a lot more vibrant. These are just a lot more metallic and shiny. And that's something that always has stood out with blue Mpc figures, and their blue regular World War II line is just like this as well. So, yeah, Mpc Civil War Soldiers. When I get some Confederates, I'll have to do a video on those as well. Of course, before I go, if you have a variety of Native Americans, you can always reenact the Battle of Little Bighorn with these guys. Or, if you unfortunately have less Native Americans than you do Union soldiers, then you can always reenact the massacre at Wounded Knee. The Forgotten American Massacre. Wasn't that just a delight? Didn't you have a good time? I thought you would. So anyway, guys, I'm the Plastic Commander. Don't do drugs. And also, maybe one day, if you drink enough female hormone-riddled tap water the government gives us, you too can be the femboy that not only do you want to be, but that you deserve to be. I'm the Plastic Commander. Thanks for watching the video.